Imagine walking into your IELTS speaking test, you feel confident and prepared. You know that no matter what happens, you're going to get the score that you need. Now picture walking out of the exam knowing that you got the score that you deserve. This might sound impossible, but it's not. I know this because I've helped thousands of students who were in the exact same position that you are in right now, struggling just like you. And they got a band 7, 8, or even 9. And in this video, I'm going to take you on a journey. I'll tell you exactly what band 5 and band 6 students do differently from band 7, 8, and 9 students. These things that band 7, 8, and 9 students do differently are actually very easy and simple to learn. You'll also discover the hidden traps and common mistakes that trip many students up. And you'll also learn the key techniques that could skyrocket your score. So if you're ready to go from fear and stress to confidence, keep watching this video. You'll know exactly what to do on test day and have total confidence. So the IELTS speaking test is divided into 3 parts. So we're going to compare what band 5 and 6 students do to band 7, 8, and 9 students. And we'll look at part 1, part 2, and part 3. So let's start off with part 1 of the speaking test. This is your opportunity to create a great first impression with the examiner. And also, I think more importantly, it allows you to relax into the test. If you relax into the test in part 1, you're going to sound much more fluent throughout the entire test. So it's very, very important that you get part 1 right. So there are 3 things that band 5 and 6 students do differently to band 7, 8, and 9 students. I'd like you to look at this clip of 2 students. They're answering the same question in part 1, and I want you to think about which one might be at a band 5 or 6 level and which one might be at a band 7, 8, or 9 level. But importantly, think about why. Why are they at that level? It's not that they sound more impressive. It's not that they have a better accent. It's not that they're using fancier words. What are the things that you could copy today? And what are the things that you could stop doing? These things will really improve your score.
I'm from the Philippines, in Cebu to be specific. Cebu is the Queen City of the South, by the way. We were colonized by the Spaniards for so long, like for 333 years.
So I grew up in Dubai and I was born and raised here. And I love it here only because of the shopping.
So here the first student is doing something that examiners are trained to spot. This problem creates the worst first impression. It could even get you a band 0, and it's memorized answers. So why is this such a big problem? Well, first of all, the IELTS test is not a memorization test. It is testing your ability to communicate clearly in English. It's not testing if you can memorize a list of words and sentences and then just repeat them to the examiner. It's also considered cheating. Think about it this way. If you really knew how to speak English, would you need to memorize answers? No. That's why you'll never hear a band 7, 8, or 9 student giving a memorized answer. They don't need to. And it also lowers your score in 2 very, very important ways. Listen to this next clip and think about how memorization might have led to a low score.
I'm from Mumbai. It's a city in India. India is known for its culture and vibrant nature. Also for their movie industry. It's located in Mumbai, where I'm from. It's called Bollywood. It's also known for its food. We have really delicious food, which is known worldwide. And people call it their favorite food, as I've heard.
So did you notice the first problem? I want you to think back to when you were a child in school. Think back to the lessons where the teacher got you and the other students to read aloud from the book. How did you feel? How do you think that you sounded? Do you think that you sounded fluent or not so fluent? Compare that to how you speak normally every day to a friend or a loved one. This is exactly how you sound when you memorize an answer. You sound like a robot. But don't worry, there's an easy way to fix that, and I'll tell you about it in a second. So did you spot any other issues? Let me explain here what the other issue was. So I want you to imagine that this is the destination. And here we have student A, and here we have student B. So the examiner asks, tell me about your hometown. Student A talks about the history of their hometown, the culture of their hometown, famous things, the food, the weather, the nightlife, and on and on. Student B just simply answers the question. And this is what Band 5 and 6 students do all the time. They go off topic in many different directions. And this is why many of you complain about examiners constantly interrupting you. They stop you mid-sentence. A lot of students complain about this and say that the examiner was rude or unprofessional. That's actually not the case. In part 1, they have to ask you a range of different questions. And if you give these very, very long memorized answers that go off in many different directions, they're going to stop you in the middle of the sentence because they need to continue with asking you those questions. And you're going to feel like, oh, the examiner thinks I'm doing really badly, and you're going to get more stressed and you're going to sound even more robotic, and your score is going to be terrible. So there was nothing wrong with your English, it was your preparation, it was your strategy. So now you might be thinking, well, how long should part 1 answers actually be? You're saying don't give very long answers. Should I give very short answers then? No, that's not good either. And I know how frustrating that advice can be. Like, don't give short answers, don't give long answers. But you shouldn't be thinking about length at all. You shouldn't be thinking of how long have I been speaking. You shouldn't be thinking of how many words or how many sentences. That's going to ruin your fluency. There's a simple strategy that you can use by copying what these band 7, 8, and 9 students do. They do something completely different. And I discovered this when I was teaching in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. What I used to do was maybe 10 or 15 minutes before class started, I would go in early and I would speak to the students about things that happened at the weekend or sports or the weather, just normal, everyday, small talk, chit-chat questions. And during those 10 or 15 minutes before the class started, a lot of students, when they were talking normally, would give band 8 or 9 answers. Then I would play a little trick on them. Once class started officially, I did something interesting. I would get one of the best students, the students that I was just talking to 10 minutes before, giving these amazing band 9 level answers. And I would do a mock one-on-one speaking test with them. So they would go from a band 9 level answer when I said, what did you do at the weekend, 10 minutes before, to giving an answer that sounded something like this. At the weekend, I went to Vung Tau. I like seafood. They have nice seafood. It was nice by the sea. I like the sea. So from a fluent band 9 answer to band 5 or band 6 in minutes. And I recognized this and I instantly improved the speaking scores of the entire class by asking one question. Why don't you speak the same way as you did 10 minutes ago? See, in the 10 minutes before class, they were talking to me like a human being, not as an examiner or a teacher. It was like having a normal conversation with a friend. And not only were they much more fluent, but they answered the question directly without going off topic. And they weren't thinking about how many words or what length or how many sentences. And I call this problem test mode. Students go from sounding very, very fluent to sounding like a robot as soon as the test starts, even in practice sessions. So how can you avoid this mistake and overcome this problem that many, many students have? There's one simple strategy that Band 9 students use. I want you to watch these clips and try and figure out what the strategy is. Do you ever buy clothes online?
All the time. It's very rare that I purchase something in store. I mean, for the last maybe 5 years, I buy everything online.
What do you like to listen to?
I love to listen to music and podcasts, especially relating to criminology and true crime stories. I really enjoy that.
Is it popular to give flowers in your country?
Yes, but I think we have to avoid white flowers because they use white flowers at funerals. I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but I think there are certain colors that we need to avoid.
So did you spot it? They simply answer the question directly, and then they add a little bit more detail. This detail could be an explanation, it could be an example, or it could be something like a personal story. And if that's confusing or overwhelming, just answer the question like you would if you were in a coffee shop with a friend. Remember, they are testing your ability to speak naturally in English. They're not testing if you can memorize a bunch of answers and impress the examiner with fancy structures and idioms and things like that. And that would be the final lesson. Just continue to talk like this and you will do absolutely amazing on your IELTS speaking test. So now let's move on to part 2 of the speaking test. But before we do, I have a little gift for you. A lot of students ask me if I can give them real practice questions. So what I've done is I've put together this PDF that has more than 500 real practice questions. It's essential that you use real practice questions because if you use ones that are too easy or too difficult, it will really mess up your preparation. So all you have to do if you want this free gift is just go below into the description, click on the link, and you can download it instantly for free. And then use all this information that I'm teaching you in the video to practice at home. So part 2 of the speaking test is often the most feared part for many students because it requires you to do something that a lot of students feel uncomfortable doing or they've just never done it before. That's because in part 2 you'll be given a cue card that looks like this and they'll ask you to speak about that topic for up to 2 minutes. And this can be quite scary for many students because it's difficult to speak about anything for 2 minutes, especially in a foreign language when you're under stress and you have a scary examiner like me looking at you. But what if I told you it wasn't part 2 that is scary? It's the strategy that students use most often that leads to low scores. And what's really interesting is this. When students stop doing these things that most band 5 and 6 students do, and they switch to our strategy that our band 7, 8, and 9 students use, something happens. Not only do their scores improve, but part 2 becomes something that they look forward to. It's their chance to shine, to show the examiner how great they are without any worry, without any stress, with complete confidence. First, listen to this student and see if you can spot any problems.
So I'll describe the house of my grandma. So who lives there? My grandma lives there. And my grandpa used to live there. Where the property is, it's in the mountain in Beirut, in Lebanon. What it looks like a castle for me. It's not a castle, but for me, it's like a castle. We have a lot of memories there. That's why I decided to talk about this house. If you like it, definitely I do. I like this house, as I mentioned, because it reminds me of my childhood and the best days we spent there and we're still spending when we go to see her. We have a lot of memories. We had good food. She used to cook a lot for us. The house is simply like, I feel like home. I just love it.
So did you spot what the problem was? What most students do is they look at the main topic here at the top, and then they look at bullet point number 1, talk about that, then bullet point number 2, talk about that, then bullet point number 3, talk about that, and then the final point, and they talk about that. But why is that a problem? Well, first of all, there might be one or more of these bullet points that you just don't have much to say about. That makes it extremely difficult to speak fluently for up to 2 minutes. And then once you get to the end, after 20 or 30 seconds for the average student, you run out of things to say and you start to panic. And you're like, oh, I've only been speaking for 30 seconds. I'm going to fail my test. Oh, I'm never going to be able to move to Canada. How am I going to tell my mom and dad? And everything gets worse and worse and you get more and more stressed and you fail the test, not because your English was bad, but because you're using this strategy that most students use. And examiners experience this all the time. In part 1, you will be listening to a student and they're like at a band 7 or 8 level, and then they get to part 2 and they completely fall apart. That is actually heartbreaking for an examiner. The vast majority of examiners are nice people who want you to do well, but they see you using this strategy and they're forced to give you a lower score because you sound so bad. So what do band 7, 8, or 9 students do differently? I want you to listen to this student who got a band 9 and look at the cue card and think about what they're doing. What are they doing differently?
My mom, who usually prepares the meals at home, she was away for vacation. So I was in charge of cooking the food at home. I learned to prepare this meal, which was pasta arrabbiata. It's very simple to some people, but from perspective where I've never really cooked anything at home, it was like a big step for me. I learned this recipe online. Like I just skimmed through a random website and I started following the recipe. And I actually had a bit of help from my cousin. The reason why I chose this food to prepare was because my dad really enjoys pasta arrabbiata. He wouldn't eat any other type of pasta except that for some reason. It doesn't have any meat. It's just literally pasta and sauce. And it was pretty quick. Like when I started preparing it, it didn't take me that long, which I liked because I hate spending hours in the kitchen just waiting to cook meat to eat something. I think that takes the fun out of cooking because I just want it quick. The part that I liked about the meal that I prepared was that it was quick, but also at the same time it was very delicious. Like I added organic tomato. I used not like the canned sauce. I made it from scratch, so that's what I enjoyed about it.
So did you spot it? They don't stick to the bullet points. They don't really think about the bullet points at all. Instead, what they do is they focus on the main topic at the top. So they're always talking about the main topic, but they're not necessarily using the bullet points. What they do instead is they have the freedom to talk about other things. In other words, add their own bullet points. So within that main topic at the top, they're adding things that they feel more comfortable talking about while still talking about the main topic. For example, if you got this cue card, you might feel very comfortable talking about these two bullet points, but this third bullet point is going to only take a few seconds, so it's not very useful. And then this fourth bullet point is something you don't really know anything about and you don't feel comfortable talking about that. But you might find it easy to talk about other things related to the main topic, such as a description of the main topic, a story, or how you feel about it, or something about the past, or something you hope to do in the future related to that main topic. Literally any other point you feel comfortable talking about. Now, should you use all of those ideas? No, just the ones that help you speak fluently for up to 2 minutes. That's our goal. That's what's being tested. So you should only follow a strategy that makes that easy to do. So now let's move on to, in my opinion, the most difficult part of the speaking test, part 3. Why do I think it's so difficult? So I want you to listen to these students and think about not so much the answers first. Think about the questions. Focus on the questions being asked and think about how you might respond to those questions. Would you be able to think for a second and give a very good answer? What factors determine how quickly someone can learn a new skill? Do you think that high school children should learn to cook at home or at school?
I never heard anyone cooking at school.
How strong a tradition is it today in your country to go to the theatre? So as you heard, part 3 questions are a lot more challenging than typical part 1 questions. But like everything with the IELTS test, the problem is not the questions, the problem is not the test. The problem is the strategy and the preparation that students use to answer them. So let's start off with things that you should not do. Mistake number 1 is no response. The most important thing you should avoid is just not saying anything. If you say to the examiner, I don't know, or just nothing comes out of your mouth, or I've literally had people burst out laughing in my face when I've asked some of these questions, what you are telling the examiner by not answering is, my English is not good enough to answer this question. That's not a good message to send to the examiner in an English speaking test. But what happens if you really have no idea? Some of these questions are very, very difficult. Even I struggle to answer some of them. We'll give you a strategy for how to tackle any question, no matter what topic it is, even if you know nothing about it, in a second. But let's look at mistake number 2, short answers. Second thing that you should never do is give a short answer. And short answers in part 3 of the test normally have nothing to do with your English level or your speaking skills. 15 minutes talking in a foreign language is a very stressful situation for anybody, especially with someone scary and horrible looking at you like me as an examiner, judging you. It's a completely exhausting process. So short answers are often more related to fatigue, to tiredness, than to English ability. So what they do is, and something you should never do, is they surrender. They give up. And what you're really saying to the examiner, if you just like, I don't want to answer these questions, is give a short answer. Again, you are saying to the examiner, I don't have enough English to answer this question. Again, you should never do that in an English test. But don't worry, I have a solution like every part of the IELTS test. But before that, I have some really, really good news for you. This is something that many students don't know or understand. I think it's a bit of a secret. I don't know whether I should actually be telling you this or not. But in part 3, the examiner has a range of different questions that they could ask you. They have some easier questions for the lower level students, and then they have really, really difficult questions for those band 7, 8, and 9 students. If you get a really difficult question, this is a good thing. It's an exceptionally good sign. That means the examiner thinks that you are maybe at a band 7, 8, or 9, and they're asking you more and more difficult questions to really stretch your English ability and separate out the band 7s from the band 8s from the band 9s. So now you know if you get a difficult question, that's a good thing and you're going to be happy about it. How do you tackle those difficult questions? Well, first and foremost, always attempt an answer. But again, what if you have no idea? Well, you could do something like this.
I'm not too familiar with the topic of AI and its relation with education. However, in my knowledge, I do know that AI is developing more and more, and it might be able to replace some teachers' jobs or tasks, but it will not replace the trait of empathy.
So remember, it is not a knowledge test. It is not an IQ test. It is not a test of how much you know about a certain topic. It is a speaking test. So again, if you say nothing, what you're telling the examiner is, I don't deserve a high score. But if you attempt an answer, even if in a very, very limited way, and you tell the examiner how you don't know much about that topic, the examiner then thinks, okay, they might not know much about that topic. Let's change topics. Let's ask them something slightly different and see how they get on. So you don't really have much to fear. It's far more likely in part 3, you'll get some kind of topic you know something about. So how do you shine? How do you show the examiner that you deserve a band 7, 8, or 9? Watch this clip and think about what the student does in terms of how they structure their answer. They do 4 things. Think about the 4 things that they do. What skills does a person need to be a great chef?
Interesting. I mean, from what I've heard, I've never worked as a chef or worked in a kitchen before, but I think it takes a lot of trial and error. So for that reason, I would imagine that the person would have to be very patient. And with that patience, you need to have an inherent passion for the food that you're making. I think chefs usually specialize in one or more cuisines. So just having an understanding of the background of the spices, where it comes from, of the meat, where it comes from. If you're not passionate about that, it can probably tire you out to be that invested in learning. So patience, passion, and a good environment, like access to good teachers, access to good books, access to good produce would probably help you hone your craft a lot more.
So number 1, they directly answered the question right away. Then they explained why they think that or why other people think that. Then they backed it up with examples, or you could also include a personal story if it's applicable. And then they developed it even more by showing another point or showing the other side of the argument. If you follow that 4-point structure and you practice it using this PDF, then you will do very, very well on test day. But if you want even more help and you want our help one-on-one and you want us to hold your hand and take you through exactly what to do on test day by giving you all the structures, all the strategies and one-on-one feedback, and to do a mock test with either me or one of the other ex-examiners on the team, we have our VIP course. What I'll do is I'll put a 10% discount code into the description below. Just click on that link. The 10% off is automatically applied and you can go and join the VIP course that covers not just speaking, but writing, reading and listening, everything that you need. We often have no places available because of the demand for our services and the amount of feedback and one-on-one attention you'll get. So not guaranteed that there will be places, but if there is one, you can go and use that 10% off. So now you know the strategies band 7, 8 and 9 students use, but that's just part of the way there. You still have a few other things to do. Remember, vocabulary is a huge part of the speaking test. The better you use vocabulary, the higher your score will be. Here are 2 different vocabulary lessons that will help you improve your vocabulary speaking score.